Good morning, folks. It is about 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time, 3:30 a.m. out in the West. Having a little trouble with my movie processor this morning, so we're seeing if we can do this live with Google Plus Hangouts. Let me go ahead first and turn on the screen share so we can all see what I'm looking at as I do this. Okay, now the first thing we're going to do is we are going to check on the positions of the planets over at Solar System Scope. We're here because it is beautiful and because the other option, NASA's JPL orbital diagram, had a flash update that makes it not run on my computer. If you haven't been over to Solar System Scope, this is what happens at the start. You can just click it to get to the current time. Now, as pretty as this looks, we're going to go ahead and make some changes because we want to see exactly where the planets are. So we're going to go to a realistic model, and we are just concerned with the planets this morning, so we're going to take off dwarf planets and comets. A couple of things to note right now, as we saw yesterday, we have Earth, Mercury, and Sun. Mercury conjoined yesterday. We have a little bit longer lasting alignment between the Sun, Venus, and Mars. And then last but not least, we are just a few days away from Jupiter getting in the mix with the Earth and Sun as well. Earth will be moving over to here probably in about 4 or 5 days from now. So let's go over to the Sun and see what's going on the last day. I'm over here at the SDO page. And what we're going to do is we're going to click AIA HMI Browse Data. We'll start it yesterday, right about the time the news came out. It automatically sets a 3-day window or so, so it'll take you up through the present if you're just looking at the last 24 hours. It's looking 193 angstroms. That's our favorite. And submit. You come up, you can go down to see it loading down there. There's our coronal hole. And the nice thing about this is it will just repeat play over and over again, so you can watch different parts of the Sun run through the last 24 hours. I want you to watch over here. That little filament that just snapped off there was the lone Earth-facing eruption yesterday. We technically had a little snap here of a filament. You'll see it in a moment right there. But that wasn't really large, and there wasn't really a huge amount of ejecta. We do have more potential filaments to erupt here, up north a little bit, and you can probably see this coming in on the limb over here. Let me zoom in. We got another big one coming in over the limb. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of these sunspots. This is what our current situation looks like in terms of sunspots. These are all departing now. This one right here, this was the topic of last night's Deeper Look episode over at suspiciousobservers.org. It has faded somewhat and has lost a bit of complexity. Not much going on in this little guy right here in the center, so we come and we look to what's still coming in on the northern hemisphere. Let's go and take a look at the magnetics here, and we see that we do have a delta spot developing at the lead negative portion. We have it developing here as well, and the trailer, although we do have some negatively polarized surfaced areas here, the main negative umbra is, the main trailing umbra is just positive there. We can look and see that there isn't actually much behind it. And the actual umbra there and the little things to the south of it are in fact positive. This is just, surface plaguing and magnetics, things like that. Let's come back over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to come to NOAA's Space Weather Center. We'll take a moment to load. Okay, so we are here at the Space Weather Center, and all the links that I like, even though you can see a nice little grouping of them here, I'm going to go ahead and pull them all up down below. Planetary index. The last one I'm looking for is the proton flux. There we go. Okay, so we were looking at this slight rise in protons there. These are high energy protons. When these get to the dotted line right here, that would be a polar radiation storm or a solar energetic particle event, space radiation storm. It has a lot of different names. But you can see as of this morning, its slight uptick is coming back down to normal. Reason is because, as you look at the last 3-day plot of solar flaring, the sun just went quiet after having a ridiculous uptick in activity. We are now a little bit shy of 12 hours since our last M flare. And since the M flares began, we hadn't really gone 12 hours without seeing a major event. And given what we had just seen with the sunspots, we come back, these ones departing, this one, which gave us at least 6 of the flares, is now decaying. And so we just have this group in here. And despite the fact that it does have some delta potential, it hasn't really given us any large flares. So this is where we stand in terms of solar flaring. Now let me go ahead and look at the solar wind. Make that a little bigger so we can all see it. We are fairly calm. I know you see somewhat of a speed rise there, but you look over at the left side here and you realize that it's not even cracking 500 kilometers per second as solar wind speed. And zoom past it a little bit there. You can see here at the KP index, which gives you a general idea of how Earth's magnetic shield is doing, that it's doing just fine. We are in the green. Let's go ahead and pull up the earthquakes because space weather isn't doing a whole lot. I'm going to come over to the USGS. This is their default page on their maps. I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit prettier. Turn on the street view. Largest quakes of the day. Right here. This one was a 6-pointer. And this is actually an Earth spot quake, but we're going to take a look at that in just a second. Let me come here to South Africa. We had an earthquake south of South Africa. And anything in 4 magnitude range in the Caribbean is worth noting. Let's come ahead. We still have some low-level quaking all over the western part of the United States, but 4.0 in Oklahoma is the big one, and the aftershocks at that near 6-pointer, California, they are going down in magnitude. Let's go ahead and pull up the Earth wind map for a second. And we are going to start with that Earth spot quake. So let me zoom over here. That's Australia. And you'll remember that 6-pointer was right around here. Oh, what do you know? Not only were we looking at this just a bit yesterday, it has strengthened significantly. And in fact, this is a tropical cyclone. We now have this slated to be coming and swinging to the west. It should probably weaken once it gets closer to Australia, the Brisbane area, but it will still play a role in making some bad weather here at the coastline, potentially some flooding, potentially some storm surges, high winds, things like that. Folks on this coastline know how to handle that sort of thing. Well, let me go ahead and run it down. We're coming over to the western part of the world. We'll zoom in a bit. This is that same system that was bringing the cold air down on the western side after pulling moisture in from the Atlantic. Still going to have some snow going on here. What you have here is a high pressure cell. Remember, in the north, lows suck in counterclockwise, highs push out clockwise. And of course, we have a convergence right there. Let me go ahead and turn on the cloud water. Could be pretty helpful. Yeah. We also have all this moisture as the air comes across the Gulf of Mexico. That moisture is coming in here. Got another little low right there. We'll see if this jives with what we expect to see in today's alerts from NOAA. Pulling up their forecast. Yeah, so you can see we still do have a little bit of snow left over up here. Let me zoom in so it's a little easier to see. We do still have some snow in the northeast, but our next system is now racing across the United States. The rain is now waning in the west, although it's still going to stick around for some areas. It's pretty much pretty much what we saw on the Earth wind map there. See the low, see all the clouds. This is the main storm as this last one is leaving. Go ahead and put the wind map back on. Come over to Europe. You can see that the central low pressure node is actually up there, but it really bulges out. Pretty much takes on the majority of Europe here. Let me go ahead and take a look at the precipitable water overlay. See if this illuminates anything for us. Sort of, not really. You can see a little purple moisture line right here curling up into this area. You see what the clouds look like. Yeah, so you can see the clouds are following this outside line, the convergence of the not really well-defined low. It's kind of a bulgy beast here. But you can see, as always, the clouds are following the outside portion of the low pressure curve at the convergence line. And whoops, that is not what I was trying to do. Let's come over to Australia. And we already took a look at the tropical cyclone, which is over here, the Earth spot quake. Until that gets to shore, our main concerns are over here. We have a low, and we still have this low here. Let me turn on the precipitable water overlay. You can see that it is now the western portion of Australia that will have more precipitation today after it's been pretty much confined to the north and the east. And the convergence on this low between nations, as you can see, runs right atop New Zealand. So probably going to expect some increased storms there. Folks, as you know, it is Saturday, so we will be conducting Fly on the Wall and over at suspiciousobservers.org. The two regular programs are Deeper Look, which I mentioned earlier, and Fly on the Wall. Today's Fly on the Wall will have a number of good discussion topics. It'll be about an hour, and it'll be posted in a few hours, probably around lunchtime Eastern. Other than that, folks, pretty calm day. The sun has quieted. We did have some bigger earthquakes, but you know, it is what it is. Eyes open, no fear. Be safe, everyone.